What's up, you guys? It's Jesse here. For those who don't know, that's a tip of the hat to a gentleman named Stephan, who owns a personal finance YouTube channel now with over 2 million subscribers. Who am I kidding though, right? For those who don't know, I'm the real rookie here, right? Although what I'm not a rookie at is opportunity cost investing. Now, Graham is one of the rare few who truly understands opportunity cost. It's one of my first recommendations for people looking to build their wealth. Naturally, when he decided to start a podcast with his partner Jack, I knew I had to check it out. In episode 5, he invited a gentleman named Jeremy of Financial Education and Financial Education 2 onto his show. I didn't know Jeremy at the time. I was introduced to him through the podcast, but apparently he runs a personal finance and stock-oriented channel. Now, the reason why I had to make this reaction video is because the discussion about performances and the questions about performances weren't tailored to get the answers that we were looking for. So without further ado, let's dive right in and start picking apart where we could have done better on discussing the performances. Before we do though, I just want to point out that I'm not bashing them. They're both very brilliant guys. What I want to do is demonstrate how we can do better. And with that, let's dive.
You go to your channel and then you sort videos by oldest.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's like 100 videos with like just 1 minute videos.
Yeah, they're all like 1 minute videos. What is a checking account? What is a savings account? And that's how you got started on YouTube.
Yep. And I've always decided to keep those videos up so just like people can see the journey on like, you know, where I started. Because I remember looking, when I started on YouTube, I remember like looking at like past videos of big YouTubers and being like, wow, they were like, you know, they were at this place. And I always hated when like some of the big YouTubers would delete their old videos because it's like motivation. It's like, wow, they were nobody. They grew a following, and it's like, it's amazing.
Yeah. All right, so Jeremy already sounds like a nice guy. Leaving all those old YouTube videos as inspiration as a way to give back seems like a really good thing to do.
What is it like for you to make money in the stock market right now?
Very easy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's days, you know, recently where I'm like, you know, it's like 50K, 80K, 100K. Like, it's been really easy to make money lately. I don't think this is going to last forever. And I don't mean to jump ahead to, you know, because I know we're still talking about YouTube journey and stuff like that. But right now, you know, the market's just been hot, man. It's like the last 2.5 months, it's been crazy. It's just been up almost in a straight line.
Are you down since December overall? Because let's say January. So you're way positive.
Way positive. Yeah, way positive. I mean, it's like,
what do you attribute that to?
A lot of different stocks have helped me out, but Tesla's the main one. Okay. I think I'm up over 300% on Tesla right now.
All right, so here they discuss performances for the first time. Graham asks whether Jeremy's portfolio is up or down overall. And that's probably not an efficient way to ask what the return is, because the next question must be by how much, right? Jeremy responds that it's way up, which furthers the question. But then he says it's led by Tesla, which is up over 300%. 300% still doesn't tell us anything, because is it 300% over 1 day or 3 years? That makes a huge difference. Jeremy also said before that he was up 50, 80, 100K in his portfolio, and that doesn't tell us anything either, because we need to know were there contributions, were there withdrawals, and again, time. So there's a lot of other components that we're missing. In their credit, though, he did say he didn't want to jump ahead because they were still on the YouTube journey. So I'm not going to fault him on it. But just something to keep in mind.
Gotcha. Now you have the public account. That's the one that I see you post all the time on Instagram.
Yeah.
The public account just reaches the all-time high. Remember when it hit like 3 something? Yeah. You're like, it's all-time high. Now it's how much is in the public account?
I think over 600, yeah.
600,000. Do you contribute regularly to that account, or is that purely just you're growing it with stocks?
I contribute to it when the market's down big, or there's a specific opportunity in the market that's huge where I'm like, I got to funnel money in. Unfortunately, since the market's been going up, I've hardly funneled any money in. So the gains lately have just been coming from every stock pretty much I own in that account going up.
Following up on the last question, Graham asked if there were contributions made. And that's actually a very good question. Because say you started at the beginning of the year with $1, and by the end of the year it became $100. It would make wildly different rates of return if you made $0 contributions versus $10 contributions. Actually, one would be positive and one would be negative, so they would be completely different. After that, Jeremy says that he's got a strategy about when he puts in contributions, which is good. But if we're measuring performances, we're going to need to know exactly when the contributions or withdrawals are made. So still have some questions, but good question.
And then what's the private account? How do we?
So
what's in that?
Yeah, so I have private
What's
accounts.
that?
They pretty much mirror the same stocks. Like if I buy a stock in the public account, I'm probably buying in my private accounts as well.
Now, how impressive though is a private account? Because I don't even know this. Like, is it over a million? It's got to be over $1 million.
You know, I would tell you, but I would have to own your YouTube channel after
It's
that.
got to be over $1 million.
If you give me the Graham Stephan show, I'll show you what's in it. Okay?
It's got to be. But don't you show what's in the private account to the people who join the membership?
No,
you don't.
But they can see every position in the public account, every single move I make, anytime I buy, sell a share, and they know about any move I make before I even make it. So I'm like, hey guys, I'm gonna probably buy this stock tomorrow, or I'm gonna sell this stock.
You know what would be really funny
What's
of
that?
you to do? This would be sneaky of you to do. In the public account, you buy everything,
Yeah.
and then in the private account, you're shorting.
Oh my gosh.
How funny would that be? Like, you buy Carnival Cruise at 15, and then you short the equivalent on the private.
Oh my
god, it's private.
Dude, wow is all I got to say. Wow, that would be a very unprofitable endeavor, considering like the majority of my stocks are up. But yeah,
That would be hilarious.
that would be a money losing
I'm
proposition.
joking. I'm joking. But so your private account is really just that's your investment portfolio.
Yeah.
That's to
And I have multiple private accounts too. I have my main private account.
Why do you call them private accounts? Why don't you say like
because for the stock market group, the public account, so they know this is public to you. You get to see every single move I make in that account. Buy, sell, everything's documented. Cost basis, you get to see literally screenshots of the account. Whereas private account, it's just more for like privacy. Like I'm kind of weird about privacy. Like I like
You don't like people knowing like your net worth
like
and
I
stuff.
don't share really anything about my family. Like you don't see my kids in my videos or even on Instagram for the most part, and that's where you'd likely see stuff. I don't share my wife. I believe like although I'm out there, I still like have some boundaries with privacy. And I understand like a lot of people on social media, they don't care. They like just post everything. For me, I'm just like, there's boundaries I set. Like I'm not willing to go that far.
Why is that account off limits? Whereas the other one,
how I started that was basically, so everybody in the private group could see me build an account, like how I build a portfolio and how I make moves, how I actually like buy and hold. Like I'm not just like trading in and out of these stocks every day. And so it's like, it was a new account when I started. Like
How much was in it?
Like a couple $1,000. Like
You know, it's at
brand new.
600,000.
Yeah, 600,000. Yep.
you've been buying.
Yeah, how much have you put in since 600,000?
I don't know because we're up like 200K right now in paper profits, but also we took profits in 18. We took profits in 19. I think in 19 we took 30. I want to say like 30K in profits. I can't remember the specific number. So it's hard to, I would say at least half the money in there was deposited though.
So this is actually a red flag to me. If someone has multiple accounts, they can hide different performances from you. So even though we'll say his public account made 100% in 1 year, what if his private one made negative 100%? To me, if I were investing under his philosophy, I would want to see both of them. And if one was 100 and one was negative 100%, then eventually they kind of correct each other, right? Regression of the mean bias. So he goes on to mention that he wants privacy and respect privacy, and that's okay. But without understanding the entire full picture, I wouldn't invest in that 100%. Would not.
How I learned initially was watching Warren Buffett YouTube interviews on YouTube. I would go to the computer lab at the community college, and this is back in old school YouTube days. At this point, this is like we're talking 2008, 2009, even 2010 a bit. And I would just like Warren Buffett interview and just watch interview after interview. And throughout watching those interviews, and a lot of it could be wasted time because they talk about what's going on in the market right now. But in a lot of those interviews, he would go into his investment process, and if it's an hour-long interview, you're going to get 10 minutes probably in there that's really, really valuable. And that 10 minutes was worth watching a full hour. And so that's how I learned a lot. I, read a few books, but the books didn't really help me. It was those Warren Buffett interviews and then getting in the market. That was the biggest thing.
Warren Buffett's investment strategies are still effective?
I was about to ask that, yeah.
So I think they're not as, I think his principles are. I think, specifically what he's looking for in stocks in a company, yes. But the unfortunate thing for Warren Buffett is I think he kind of aged out of the market, whereas he doesn't invest in tech stock.
He's a Warren Buffett fan. That's awesome. I am too. If there's anything written or in a video about Warren Buffett, I have read it and listened to it, I guarantee you. However, That leads me to tell you that Jeremy's actually wrong about Warren Buffett investing in the tech industry. In fact, over a third of his portfolio in Berkshire Hathaway is invested in Apple. So one can actually argue that Warren Buffett isn't avoiding tech, he's actually heavily invested in it. And this has been going on for a couple of years now. Another thing they mention is that these companies nowadays are trading years ahead of where they're actually earning. And he says that because of that, Warren Buffett's out of tune with the investing landscape. It's actually funny though, because history shows that this is actually a cycle that we go through as investors. A lot of times, our current earnings, we'll say, don't meet our par because we want them to grow so much. So instead of projecting a reasonable scope of earnings, people will look further into a growth pattern and keep reaching up years so that way they can find more and more growth there. It's kind of like if you as a person were making $50,000 a year and you were to extrapolate that out and find out what you would make in the lifetime of your earnings. Well, you can say that maybe you'd make promotions as the job goes on. So you would trade yourself as if you would make more money, but it hasn't happened yet. That's actually where misevaluations happen. And in time, the estimations will be over-exaggerated, and there'll actually be a correction back to where they should be, which is based on closer to reality. But a lot of times, the market just gets so excited about what's happening and try to create new prospects for growth, and the disconnect grows. This was illustrated perfectly in George Soros' book, The Alchemy of Finance, one of my favorite books. Although I might not agree with George Soros' investing style, I do agree with his investing philosophy and his study of the market cycle. And I told you Warren Buffett and his company are highly invested in tech stocks. So I brought you the SEC.gov to prove it. By clicking on company filings, you can search the financial reports of all the publicly traded companies. I type BRK and Berkshire Hathaway immediately pulls up. I go down to the latest 10Q filing and hit Documents and the HTM, and it'll pull up the financial report. I do Control F and search for Apple, and it'll automatically take me all the way down to their holdings, making sure I'm on the correct date, March 31st, 2020, which is the most recent as of making this video. You can find that they have a $63.8 billion fair value out of their fair value $180 billion portfolio. So if we bring up Excel real quick, I can show you that 63.8 billion out of 187 billion multiplied by 100, it's about a third of their portfolio, 34%. And if that's hard for people to visualize, I also brought it up in Guru Focus. You can see this heat map. Apple makes about a third of their portfolio. That to me is easier to see. So I brought that up in case it's easier for you to see.
Because I started getting a little bit of this, like, Graham, you make more money from YouTube than you do from real estate. And I'm like, well, of course. You know, what I try to explain to people is that, like, YouTube is full time. Like, that's like 60 hours, 70 hours a week sometimes. Yeah. Real estate is passive. Like, you can't compare working 60 hours a week to something that's passive. But you'll get people like, Jeremy, you make more money than YouTube than stocks.
Honestly, I get that I get comments like that. You know, it's usually like a hate comment, like, "Oh, you make so much from YouTube," and it's like, you know, I make maybe $60K a month from YouTube, 50 to 60, let's say. Okay, in one trading day, my accounts in total will be likely, if it's a volatile day in the market, decent volatile, not like crazy, will be up or down 50, 60K.
While watching this video, I knew I had to do reaction the moment I saw this part. And the reason is, the commenter, although I didn't see it, so take it for what it's worth, said that the contributions he makes through the revenues on YouTube makes a difference in his overall performance is absolutely vindicated. Jeremy dismisses this because Jeremy's overall performance far exceeds that of YouTube's revenue. However, like we discussed when Jack asked the question about contributions, that it makes a difference depending on how much, how often, and when you contribute to money. And I did warn you that someone with multiple portfolios is likely, very likely, to pick and choose performances or information based on an argument or their ego. And that's exactly what Jeremy did. He didn't say that the public portfolio makes X amount. He said that across all his portfolios, he makes between 50 and 60K. Now, I have some trouble with his numbers too. Although we don't know his net worth because he says he wants to keep it private, and we don't know what he thinks is decently volatile. There are some numbers I have to dig into here. So let's jump into Excel. If you guys recall, his Fidelity app showed a Friday gain of $5,411. The same day, the S&P 500 made 0.65%, and I'll show you that here. From Friday to the end of the day, 0.65%. So if we go back to Excel real quick, I can show you that his portfolio made 0.93% that day. That doesn't sound like a lot, right? But if you annualize that out, you actually get 2,797% annualized. To me, that's a decently volatile day, especially if you consider the fact that the S&P 500 makes, we'll say, 7% a year, conservatively. Then on a daily, you're looking about 0.02%. So the difference between 0.02, which we can expect, and 0.93 is absurd. And I would say this is decently volatile. But because we don't know his definition, we'll never know for sure. Also, I don't think it's fair to say a day that's decently volatile. I think it's more appropriate to suggest a day that's more in line with what happens every single day, right? Why would you tell me about the abnormal when you can tell me about the effective rate on a daily basis? In his defense, I'll take his supposed gain of 50,000 because it's easier to make. At 0.93% a day, he would need a portfolio value north of $5 million, which I actually don't think he's worth. We'll never know for sure, but I don't think that's true. If we take that number and use the 75% he has on a one-year basis, then his supposed gain is probably closer to $8,000 a day instead of $50,000 a day. So I said to myself, what would be my best estimate of his net worth? Well, if his public portfolio is $600,000, and Graham was led to believe that his private account was probably near $1 million, then maybe his net worth is $2 million. I rounded in his favor. If he says he makes $50,000 in one day off of $2 million, then that would be the equivalent of making 2.5% in one day. Again, 2.5 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you annualize that out, it becomes a enormous number. 820,650% in one day. To me, this is the best guess of what he's talking about, but I don't think it's an accurate depiction of the sentiment he's trying to create. As you can see, this is why it can get so confusing to discuss performances, because without all the necessary information, we're led to believe all the different things, and we might not ever know the true performance. Now on to calculating and communicating your performances. To calculate your performance, you're going to need two things: a ROI, your return on investment, and a money-weighted rate of return. And before I progress, you might hear these terms before. However, linguistics is an art, meaning it's up to interpretation. Just because you hear it or see it online doesn't actually mean that it's your actual performance. Just like what we saw with the Fidelity app, it was his 75% one-year rate of return, but it wasn't really because he's going to need to pay taxes on that. And that is an effect of his investing and needs to be addressed. So, your return on investment needs to include every single expense. So that includes expense ratios if you have a portfolio in a ETF. It can include commission fees if you're not on one of the commission fee platforms, regulatory fees, which a lot of people don't know are still on commission-free platforms like Robinhood and Webull, and taxes. So once you have all those costs and when they happen and when you need to have money, you can calculate that rate of return. However, we also discussed that your contributions and withdrawals make a huge difference as well. With the money-weighted rate of return, is it adjusts the rate of return based on how much contributions, when you make your contributions, and how often you make your contributions or withdrawals. And it is the most accurate figure for getting your performance. Once you get that figure, to communicate it correctly, you're going to need an annualized rate of return. For example, if you come out with an ROI that's money weighted and it becomes 10%, it doesn't mean anything to you because you don't know whether it's 10% in one day or 10 days or 10 years. all makes a difference. If I were to ask someone for their performance, I would say, what is your money-weighted ROI? How much? And what was the percentage? From there, I would need to know, is it annualized? And how many days it took to get to that performance? And that is how you communicate. And there's more steps, and that's opportunity cost.
It is, at the end of the day, that's what we do. Like, you know, we could be focused on a lot of different businesses and doing a lot of different things. This just happens to be what we do, you know, for, you know, business. So, and sometimes I even think, you know, taking it on a deeper level, sometimes I think if I'm like, I could actually be making way more money if I was focused on doing something else. And maybe YouTube is actually holding me back from doing something like way bigger. I have those type of thoughts sometimes where I'm like, you just don't really know.
Like what?
I don't know. You know, I don't even think about what else I could be doing because I'm so focused on YouTube all the time.
The phrase they're looking for is opportunity cost, and that's what this channel is all about. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.